Hi, I'm Dr. Bobby Du Bois, and welcome to Live Long and Well, a podcast where we will talk about what you can do to live as long as possible and with as much energy and vigor that you wish. Together, we will explore what practical and evidence-supported steps you can take. Come join me on this very important journey, and I hope that you feel empowered along the way. I'm a physician, Ironman triathlete, and have published several hundred scientific studies. I'm honored to be your guide. Welcome to Live Long and Well with Dr. Bobby. This is episode 23, Longevity Highlights. Key takeaways from the 6 pillars to live long and well. Well, today we have something new. In fact, 2 something news. First, we have now a YouTube version of this episode. So if you want to watch me and watch graphics and video clips, you might go to YouTube and watch the video version of this podcast, or you can continue, of course, to listen as you do now. Also, the second is this is a new segment. It's going to be called Longevity Highlights. And in these highlight segments, I'm going to review recent episodes and provide reminders and high-level take-home messages. And I hope these will be very practical reminders you can incorporate in your life. And today, we're going to focus on the takeaways from the very first 6 pillars episodes. And just as a reminder, all of the things we're going to talk about are based on good evidence. Well, why now? Well, I had done 22 episodes, and that's a lot of information, or at least I think it's a lot of information. And I felt that it was important to pause periodically and reinforce that information. Now, some of these numbers I'm going to quote are not based on rigorous evidence, but it's often said that we only remember 20% of what we read or hear or see if we just see it just one time. So it's often talked about the fact that you need to hear the same information twice, 3 times, perhaps 7 times before it really sticks. Now, you know, I love studies. So, of course, I had to go and find a study that supports this. And they did a brain activation study. So they were looking at parts of the brain, and specifically the hippocampus, which is where memories are stored. And they looked at it a day after learning information, a week later, a month later, and they compared it when you only heard it once or saw it once up to a total of 7 times. And what they found was the more times it was repeated, the more activation there was of the hippocampus, meaning we really, really do need to reinforce our learnings for it to stay. Well, another piece of the puzzle is that when you hear something, that's good, or see something, but your retention is much stronger if you share that information with someone else. And if you teach someone else, you may remember 90 or 95% of that information. Now, I practice that with Gail because I often share with her some of the studies that I'm sharing with you, my audience, and the more repetition that I am able to do, the better off I am in remembering. So please listen, please watch on YouTube if you wish, and share this with others. Well, as you know, I like to begin with a personal story. And as you know, I do a podcast, so I'm very focused on health and fitness. And obviously, I'm a physician, so that adds a piece of the puzzle. And from my quiz, I turned out to be a holistic health hacker, meaning that I tend to try to dial in all aspects of health. If you haven't taken the quiz, just go to my website, drbobbylivelongandwell.com, and you can take it. And most people have found that it's very helpful, and we have about 600 people who have already taken it. So I realize this is Thanksgiving. We just had Thanksgiving, and I need to keep relearning the lessons I'm sharing with you. So, as you know, we've talked about when you're eating, your brain takes a while to realize, oh, I guess I'm full, about 20 minutes or so. And so over Thanksgiving, I did not remember the 20-minute guidance, and I overate meal after meal after meal. Had I paused, I might not have overeaten quite as much. I've also gotten out of the habit recently of meditating, and I find I get a bit more irritable when things come up. And meditation reminds me that that feeling of uneasiness is just a feeling, and I can feel a little more comfortable with that. I also got out of the habit of my sauna and my cold plunge. Well, Gail and I tried to get back on the wagon, and we took our saunas last night. We had 24 people stay at our ranch and be with us for 4 days for Thanksgiving, and we were worn out. But having the sauna, we felt great afterwards, and we slept really well. So again, someone like me who thinks about this all the time, I need to be reminded. So I thought perhaps others do as well. Now, if you can remember back to the first episode, we talked about what does it mean to live long and well. Okay, live long, that's pretty straightforward. You want to live to be 90 or beyond. But live well is a little more subtle. And I had shared with you a quote by the author, Hunter S. Thompson. I'm going to repeat it because it's a really good mantra for me to remember and for you perhaps as well. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride. So again, it isn't just living long, but we want to be as energetic during our whole life, and especially in those final years. So this highlights episode is going to reiterate the 6 pillars. Very briefly, I'm going to walk through each one, why that pillar is so important, and then practically, what can we do? All right, pillar number 1, exercise. This was episode number 2, probably the single most powerful lever we've got. And frankly, when people think about health and wellness, they often think of exercise, so people tend to focus this. But just as a reminder, exercise reduces our risk of mortality by 20% or even more, and the more exercise, the more that risk is in your favor. And this has been based on studies with 600,000 people. Exercise reduces our cancer risk 20 to 30%, again, based on a large study of folks. And exercise reduces our risk of Alzheimer's disease. Data here isn't quite so perfect. It's not clear how many years of exercise to get the benefit, vigorous exercise versus not so vigorous exercise, but it appears it does reduce that risk. But also remember that exercise isn't just to live longer or not get dementia. It also helps our bodies to be functional and to do those activities we want, like pickleball or hiking or playing with our grandkids as we get older. All right, what were the key takeaways? Try to get 2 to 5 hours of aerobic exercise every week. Try to do a strength training regimen once or twice a week. If you can do some balance training, great. And if you can do high intensity work once a week, that's great. Okay. Number 2, sleep, the unsung hero. This was episode 3. Also want to mention that on my website, every one of my episodes, I have an article about what we talked about. And so it's very quick and easy for you to find the information, the lists of things you might want to focus on. Just go to the website, which is drbobbylivellongandwell.com. You'll also find the quiz there. And if you want to work more closely and directly with me, you can reach out in that way. Okay, if you are a single-minded achiever, that's one of our quiz types, or a contentment creator, you tend to focus on a small number of aspects of health. you may not be remembering to focus on all the things you can do to improve your sleep. And as we've talked about, too many of us get less than 7 hours per night, and that 7 hours is a pretty good benchmark of what we need. Less sleep, especially less regular sleep meaning roughly the same amount of sleep every night, roughly you go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time. When you don't get that amount of sleep, it impacts your mortality, it impacts your memory. But the good news is there are 12 practical steps you can do that will help almost everybody improve their sleep. Now, I'm not going to walk through all 12. If you go to the prior episode, number 3, or go to the blog on my website, you'll get them listed all there. But here are some that is good to remind ourselves. Alcohol really affects our sleep. Eating close before bedtime may affect your sleep a lot. Have a cool temperature in your bedroom. That makes a huge difference for a lot of people. Try a sauna or a hot shower before bed, just like I talked about that Gail and I just did. That can help you sleep well. If you can get early sunlight, walk around outdoors, beginning of the day, that's great. And as I mentioned, a regular bedtime. And just as a bonus element here, remember we've talked about N of 1 studies. Try something in yourself, measure a baseline, measure after you're trying this new thing and see if it helps. Sleep is a perfect thing. Stop alcohol for a little while, see if it makes a difference. Restart alcohol perhaps, see if it gets worse again, and then you'll really know how your body functions. Okay, next pillar, nutrition. That's episode 4. So much has been written and talked about, but I netted down to 4 principles, and I wanted to remind you of these. Principle 1, if you can, from a nutrition standpoint and your whole body standpoint, maintaining a proper weight. Whole host of reasons this is helpful. Feel free to listen to my episode also on weight and weight loss. Principle 2, all diets work. They all work until they don't. Whether it's high fat, low fat, intermittent fasting, there is no magic diet that will work. Try it, and whatever works for you is what you should do. Principle 3, what we eat, carbs versus meats versus other things, and when we eat it is less crucial. Obviously, protein is important, but the rest of the diet, there is, again, no magic. And principle number 4, reiterating, protein is critical. Okay, 4th of our pillars, mind-body harmony. Episode 5, if you want to listen more directly. It is probably the most overlooked area, meaning people might be running, they might focus on their nutrition, but they often don't incorporate very simple things like walking in nature, breath work a few minutes a day, yoga or meditation. Mind-body work is so important. Stress has been related to your blood pressure, cardiovascular death, and these activities, like the walk in nature and the breath work and yoga and meditation, have been shown to affect your cortisol, stress hormones, and reduce your blood pressure. All right, number 5, exposure to heat and cold. Especially cold plunges, cold showers. This is where I get most of my pushback. People are like, Dr. Bobby, I'll do all these other things. Please, I don't, and I can't do the cold plunge. Okay, if that's not your thing, it's not your thing. But these activities have been going on for thousands of years. And as we talked about, there's a whole series of important studies in Finland which showed that saunas, regular sauna use, reduces heart disease, reduce cognitive decline. Okay, so what's the prescription? Sauna, 20 minutes, ideally 3 times a week. The more you do, the better it seems in terms of our health. Cold plunge, fewer studies, no real long-term studies. But what it has been shown is that our dopamine levels, our happiness hormones, as it were, increase when you do just a couple of minutes of that cold exposure. All right, the final one, the importance of social relationships. This is Pillar 6, and it was in episode 7. And we talked about the Harvard study of adult development. It's also been popularized in Blue Zones. And it is the strongest predictor of living into our 70s and being functional. So very important to work on. And the definition of a strong social relationship for me is there somebody you can call in the middle of the night? And as we talked about, as we age, our friends die off, they move off. It's important to incorporate younger people in our lives as friends so they will continue with us, hopefully for decades to come. Well, that's it. We have summarized the 6 pillars, why they're important, and what you can do that's very, very practical. Let me know if you liked the highlights episode. I need the feedback. I really appreciate it. If you can leave me a review, please do so. Please recommend the podcast to others. And again, if you haven't taken the quiz, you might find it very, very helpful. Well, until next time, our journey continues to live long and well. Thanks so much for listening to Live Long and Well with Dr. Bobby. If you liked this episode, please provide a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. If you want to continue this journey or want to receive my newsletter on practical and scientific ways to improve your health and longevity, please visit me at drbobbylivellongandwell.com. That's doctor as in DR, Bobby, livelongandwell.com.